Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's so nice to see everybody. Thanks for coming. And as you know, this is kind of a different show, and if it lasts 15 minutes, that's okay. But I put out the word to our club member, to the Intuit Club. If you're in that, on the community page, I put a link there. So if you want to be a guest and come on, I really wanted to talk about spiritually transformative experiences. And I felt prompted to talk about this because I get, within the mentoring that I've done, I get a lot of people who they'll hit a dry spell where they feel like they're either not connected as well or they can't hear as well. Or they'll hit a period where they feel like they're kind of uninspired. They lose that. You do have to work at this, So sometimes you can hit these spells where you feel a little. I call it like spiritual fatigue a little bit, but you can hit those periods where you feel a little like you're kind of adrift. And so I really wanted to refuel all of us. And I feel like a lot of times that happens, especially if you're in a period where you're feeling a little disconnected, or you're hitting a dry spell, or you hit that spiritual fatigue, where other people's stories can inspire you. And I really feel like our stories, especially transformative ones, spiritually transformative experiences, are meant to be shared. And that's why, is because we all need each other, and we need to kind of lift each other up when we're all not in that space of feeling like, oh, I feel so connected and I'm just getting all these messages and everything's, that can usually, another thing to keep in mind too, is that usually when you feel like I've gotten messages and I've been seeing numbers, I've been seeing birds, and I've been seeing all of these signs and symbols, and then all of a sudden it kind of dries up, it's usually because your guides want you to go to another level or a next level. And so they'll find another way to connect. So if you have that feeling like I was so connected, or I was getting all these messages, start checking other things. Notice your thought patterns, notice your dreams, notice your feelings, notice other ways that they might be trying to expand you and to connect with you in a different way that they've never connected before. So anyway, so that's what's going on. And I know, like Kelly, Prince Charming's mom, I think you guys, Spirit made me do it. I'm not sure if Spirit made me do it if you're in the club, but go to the community page, and if you would like to share your spiritually transformative experiences, click on the link and I will let you in, and we'll have a chat on here. I do want to share one with you before I bring on our first brave guest. So when I was, and this is one you may have heard before. If you have, I apologize. But if not, it can be a secondhand transformational experience for you. It was for me at the time, for sure. And it was one of my first very big spiritual experiences that brought things to a different level. So when I was 30, my dad passed away from lung cancer. He was only sick for 4 months, so it was very fast. And when he passed away, Cassie was just tiny. So I was burning the candle at both ends, and we had all, helped to take care of my dad. When he passed away, he stayed home. My mom was the main caretaker, but we all helped. I have 4 sisters. We all helped. And when he passed away, the night before his funeral, I went to sleep, and I woke up about 2 hours after I had gone to sleep. And I was exhausted, absolutely exhausted. And I had a hard time sleeping because the funeral was the next day, and I had to sing, of course. Of course, I had to sing at the funeral. So I was thinking about that and thinking about all of the things we had to do and things like that. And I'd woken up a couple hours later, and I was just kind of laying there. And as I opened my eyes, I saw Adam kind of walking by the window, and he had his hand up, so I knew he was on the phone. And I sat there and watched him, and I thought, and it was probably about 11 p.m. or 12 p.m. And I was thinking, oh, what has happened now? Because up until that point, the last couple of weeks, we've been getting late night phone calls, early morning phone calls. And I thought, oh my gosh, what could have happened now? I hope my mom's okay. And I was thinking, I hope maybe someone backed out of the funeral, or maybe we had something happened that I don't, I couldn't think what could have happened. And going through the checklist of, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And the whole time I'm watching Adam kind of pace back and forth, and he had his hand up on the phone. And I thought, why isn't he saying anything? Because he wasn't saying, responding to anything on the phone. He was just like kind of not pacing, but just kind of walking back and forth like he was listening and talking on the phone. And finally, after 2 or 3 minutes, I said, Adam. And Adam sat up next to me. So this whole time I had been watching what I thought was Adam walking back and forth in my bedroom. And it was not him. And all I could get out, I was so shocked that all I could get out of my mouth was, who's that? That's all I could say was, who's that? Who's that? And my husband never moved so quickly. He jumped up and said, who's what? Who's what? What's going on? Flipped on the light. And at that point, it was like it dissolved, like the person dissolved. And I still get chills when I think about it today, because what I realized in that moment was that was my dad. I just knew it. The things threw me off was that it looked like a solid person walking around in the dark. The other thing that threw me off was that he was young. Adam was 28 at the time. He looked 28. He didn't look like when he was 67. He didn't look like that. He looked like a young man walking around the room. Now, why was his hand up like that, right? Well, when he passed away, he had a few growths that were like tumors, large tumors, and he had a tumor on his neck that was really large. And I felt like he was like feeling it because it was gone. It wasn't there. So that's what I have put together, why his hand was up like that. But that story, I always tell it because it has such validity, because I didn't think like, oh, is that a spirit or whatever. I thought that was Adam, and I was watching him walk around the room and thinking, why isn't he saying anything? What is going on? And that's why it always stuck with me. And it told me too, and the reason it was spiritually transformative, I mean, obviously seeing a spirit in your room is spiritually transformative, but at the time I was still going to church. I hadn't started this whole embarking on my own spiritual path at that point. And what it told me was two things for sure. And because I saw it with my own eyes and I experienced it personally, right, was that one, we go on. Well, I don't know all the ins and outs of it, especially at that time. Oh, I didn't know all the ins and outs of it, but we go on. No doubt about it. No doubt in my mind anymore. That can be put to bed. We go on. The other thing personally was that my dad was okay, that my dad was fine. And that also was completely transformative, because I didn't fear death in the way that I had and that most people do. And I didn't fear I still missed him, but knowing he was okay, knowing he went on and he's in some other phase, that was so, it gave me such peace. And it changed the way that I mourned. It changed the way I thought of death. It was transformative. Was it it wasn't, and I think, we hit all these little points, and some are big things like that. And some are these small little transformative experiences that we have internally. And so that's what I hope to help with today, is give us some new stories and people's testimonies about the things that they have witnessed, that they now know because of their own experiences. And so please write them in the chat. It's not, not everybody's comfortable coming on and talking, but please put it in the chat if you want to. And I'm going to get on people that want to come on and talk about this, because I think especially right now, we're in this spiritual kind of, renaissance. I think it's really important to keep that spiritual vibration up and to keep us moving forward. Even when we personally feel a little bit stagnated, or a little bit like, I'm not feeling anything, or I'm not getting I'm not where I was, or whatever. I think that it's really, really helpful and really inspiring to hear other people's stories. It can really fill, the gas tank when it feels like it's empty. So I want to bring on Linda, and these are all stories that they're going to share, and I am going to have the reaction that I have, because I haven't heard these stories yet. I really just wanted to very kind of spontaneously bring people on, and I felt like whatever their story is going to be, somebody here needs to hear it. Okay, so we're going to go along with that. So Linda.
Hi, Kim.
Hello. You're a brave girl for coming on.
Well, and so I wasn't sure. I know you said 7 minutes. So this experience has taken on a life of its own. So I wanted to be concise. So I wrote some things down so I wouldn't go over. So anybody who wanted to have a chance could do that. So if you see me,
and take your time. Don't feel like you have to. That was just a guideline, just so we're not sitting here for with it just so it's not. We get to hear from everybody, but go ahead. I'm very, very happy and excited to hear your story.
Well, I've had many transformative experiences, but this one is recent, and it's had a profound impact on me. It was kind of a combination of a dreamlike and a memory. It didn't feel like a dream. I pay attention to dreams a lot. This one had a different texture. It had the texture of a memory. Like, I can remember a dream, but I remember that I was in Italy, and those are different textures, and it felt more of a memory. So very otherworldly. So that was intriguing to me. But during the experience, I was with my deceased grandmother, who in life, she had been really more of a mother to me, thankfully. So, we were in this place. As I said, it did not feel like, during the experience, it all felt very natural. I didn't feel like, oh, I'm not on Earth anymore. It just was very natural. So I was with her, and we were doing many of the same types of things that we did when she was here. She died when I was in my early 20s. But I was very close to her growing up, and we spent lots of time together. I loved listening to her wisdom. I learned a lot from her. We laughed a lot. We had long walks and long talks. And so during this experience, we were doing all of those wonderful things that were so joyful and peaceful. And I felt so cherished, and it was just glorious. It was wonderful and timeless, And except that then there came a time when I must have thought that I knew I had to go back. And I said to her, I begged her, please don't send me back. And I said, I can't go back there. It's too hard. I can't do it anymore. Please don't send me back. And so she looked at me and she, held me and she said, I don't have a choice. And so I'm sobbing and I'm pleading in a very guttural way, please don't send me back. And so she then took me by the hand and we walked down this corridor to this room, and we walked into this bedroom, and it was a beautiful bedroom, beautiful linens, beautiful decor, just cozy. It was wonderful. And she took me over to the bed and she, told me to lie down and to take a nap. And she stroked my hair and she sat next to me on the bed the way she always had until I fell asleep. And again, it was so peaceful. And then the next scene, there was no background. And some of these things, there were no background. Sometimes it was just she and I in like space. There was nothing in the background. And this was the same way, except I was on like a doctor's examining table. I was laying, on my back, asleep, still asleep, feeling so blissful, so happy, so, comfortable. And that was a very short time. And then the next scene, I wasn't on the examining table anymore. I was on a marble altar. And no sketchings or anything, just kind of a marble thing. And I was on top napping still, and still feeling this wonderful, feeling. And then the next scene, I was back in the bedroom napping, and this person comes in, and I don't remember what she looks like anymore, who whether it was he or she, but this person comes over, walks to the bed and says, Linda, it's time. And I remember, waking up from the nap and crying, sobbing, please don't send me back. Don't, I can't go back there. And my grandmother then entered the room. This person left. And I started pleading and begging again. And she, held me, and then she took my face in her hands, and she again put her hands on my shoulders and said, I have no choice. And she held me tight, and then I remember at this point, I'm watching us now from behind all of us, I guess, and above us was a sentence appeared in like black font, and I knew at the time what it was. I don't remember it now, except I do remember that the first word on there was not in black font, and it was bigger, and it had a physicality to it, like bronze or wood. It was kind of a hardish. I remember I could feel that the word felt hard, hard texture. And I could remember that emotionally it was hard. And the word, I mean, that's the only word I remember in the sentence. And the word was truth. And as I saw that, I also was saying to her, it's too hard. I can't go back there. You just don't, it's too hard for me. I can't do it anymore. And so then she, took me by the shoulders again, and she said, Linda, it's okay now. You're going to be okay now. And then with that, the final scene was we were being driven to this place. It was a piece of property that the vehicle stopped at. And it was like there was a house. I don't recall the house, but evidently it must have been my house. But it was set back, and there was this piece of land, almost kind of like in The Wizard of Oz, where the house is set back and you have to walk down. So it was kind of like that. And we got out of the car or whatever, or the vehicle, and she went over and I hugged her for the last time with my whole life. I can still feel it. And she, then again said, "It's okay now. You're okay." And so I turned around and walked toward the house. So sad. I can still feel the sadness. Walked into the house, and there was my family. There was my mom screaming at me. The chaos ensued, screaming and yelling and, wanting to know. It's like she knew where I had been and wanting to know what had been said and what had gone on. And my siblings are all upset with me and, causing this chaos. And why can't you just, let things go and I walked past them, walked into my bedroom, closed the door, and just was there and realizing that, if in my room, and this was pretty much like growing up, in my room, I could close the door, I would be okay. It was me, it was spirit, it was, all of me there. And then that was the end of that. But I remember then being conscious or waking up or whatever, and I am drenched. I am sobbing, just sobbing, the kind of sobbing that it takes, it's hard to catch your breath. I mean, I was just sobbing. And I was also trying to recall what just happened and trying to recall parts of it. And with that, I heard my grandmother's voice, which that was another thing. My grandmother's been gone for so long that I couldn't even remember what her voice sounded like. I have total recall of her voice after that experience. And I heard her say, "You see, Linda, I told you it would be okay. Just look at you." And I'm like sobbing even more. It took me about 40 minutes to stop crying. And then I knew that it was going to, it was important. And I spoke to her and I said, I have to process this. I mean, there's so much here, but, tomorrow when I can, get myself together, let's talk about this. And so the next day I did meditate and channel her and asked her, I said, this felt like it was, more of a memory than a dream. And what was this? And she told me, she said, this was a memory. Now, the thing that's interesting and the thing that was another thing that's profound about this is that at the time that I would have been in this experience, I would think it was probably like I was 10 to 13. I was alive, she was alive. So that was kind of odd. And she said, no, it was a memory. And she said, you're able to remember this now. And she said, and you're going to start remembering, more things. So one of the things that I came away with is that it gave me, how it's understood that obviously there is no time. It's an invented humanity thing. And over there is no time. But I thought, wasn't this interesting? I think that at that age was probably a traumatic age for me. They were all traumatic, but this must have been where it feels like she and I, on our higher self, on a higher soul, I must have been in trouble, emotionally, And so we went to this place, and it felt, because the doctor's table and the altar, it felt very healing. So it probably was like, bring her over here. We need to work with her, and then we got to send her back into the game. But we need to, give her a respite and help her so she can go back and she knows she's going to be okay. And so the idea of time, I mean, that's what I have a better feel or understanding of timelessness there. It's kind of like, it felt to me like you can still be having experiences there that you may not remember here, but you can then on the other side go back and jump into those experiences and remember them or relive them because they're all there, at the same time. The other thing that was interesting is sometimes she would be, in this experience, she'd be talking to me and there would be words, but other times she'd be talking to me and there were no words. I didn't see her mouth. But I could feel what she was saying to me. I knew what she was saying to me. So that was another thing. It was kind of more confirmation of, that kind of thing. I also, in my channeling afterward, I asked her, I said, you were such a wise mentor teacher for me when you were here. Can you do that still with me in my spiritual work that I do? Because I do tarot and will you work with me? And then I got this full body chills. I mean, I wanted to take pictures of it because it was so interesting. And so then in subsequent days, I would then channel her and I would ask her spiritual questions that I would get in my meditations that I didn't understand. And I would ask her, and often when I meditate or channel, I have to wait for a little bit. You sit and you wait for the information to come. With her, it's like almost immediate. And it has come in such beautiful essays kind of thing. I mean, initially I was like writing it down and it was too much. So then I started using my phone and, doing that. And so the first one that I did with her, I said, oh my God, I said, this is beautiful. I said, do you want me to do you want me to put this out there? Do you want me to, and I said, okay, well, I'll put this in as a blog essay, kind of thing. And so I did. And so I'll be working with her and doing some blogging from her, and it'll be kind of just a question and answer thing from her. And so anyway, that's
that. What a great story, Linda. And I think that, and you probably, if you've heard near-death experiences, I'm sure that it has lent such validity to your own experience, because they talk about that timelessness feeling. They talk about the getting more like downloads rather than talking with our vocal cords. It's more of a kind of a telepathic kind of downloads that you get. And also this idea of kind of, that timelessness kind of in between, where you're kind of not really in any time, and yet it's all accessible in a way. I also find it really interesting that you kind of talked about it in this scene, and then the next scene was this, and then the next scene was this. Do you think that there's more that you'll recall, even like through your life? Do you think there'll be even more you recall? Because it almost seems like what was between this scene and this scene that's not there. Yeah.
And she told me that. She said, you can remember, you're starting to remember. That's why you remember this. You can remember. Right. And if I had this experience 10 years ago, I would have dismissed it. I would have said, this is impossible because she was already dead, or she was still alive. And this, she couldn't have been there but when I started looking at this, I was like, oh yeah. Oh, this makes perfect sense. I get that. I get what they're saying, that you can drop into here or you can drop into there, and it's all there. As you said, accessible to you. And she said you're going to be starting to remember more of this. So I was like,
I love that. And I love that we're starting with this one, because we all dream. We all have dreams. And you're right. It's when you have a visitation dream, or what you had, kind of a memory of a meeting and this whole experience that you'd forgotten. It becomes like a memory. It's different than a dream. A dream tends to kind of fade, not completely make sense. You remember just little tiny things, and usually that fades. With this kind of thing, it doesn't fade. It becomes and not only that, there may even be more added to it that you remember. So thank you, Linda, so much for sharing. I really appreciate it. Great. Thanks for coming in. We'll talk to you again, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Do I
You can just go off if you want to, Linda, and just keep watching the show. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Okay, thank you so much. All right, and Kelly.
Oh, hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly. How are you?
Good. I'm great, thank you. I heard you call me out, so I was like, all right, I better jump on.
Yes, please do.
Yeah.
And what spiritually transformative experience would you like to share?
Oh my gosh, I have so many, but I'm wondering, okay, I'll let you choose. Should I tell, and these I've told on my channel, but should I talk about my angel shoes, or should I talk about my the angels who visited me?
Whatever you think. But why don't you talk about the angel shoes? I don't know if I don't think I've heard that before. So yeah, I'd love to hear that.
This is just a funny little thing that happened to me a couple of years ago. I think it was just at the beginning of the pandemic. And I was out walking my dog. And I'm sitting there, I'm listening to a podcast, and as I'm walking, I'm thinking, I have an arthritic spot in one of my feet, in my right foot. And I was just thinking, oh my gosh, should I go get this looked at? And, what do I do? And blah, blah, blah. And I was just actively thinking, my foot hurts. What do I do? And so on the podcast I was listening to, this person comes on and she says, she's just chatting on the podcast, and she gives an example. She's like, it's like when your foot hurts and, you just realize that you'd need a new pair of shoes. And that pair of shoes is all you need. And I'm just sitting there thinking like, well, that's really weird, because I'm sitting here thinking about how my foot hurts. And okay, so that was odd. But I probably walked another 2 blocks, and there, dead in the middle of the sidewalk, is a brand new pair of New Balance tennis shoes. No lie. And I'm like looking at them like, that's really weird, but it's a pair of shoes that aren't mine, and I'm not going to touch them. And so I was just like, how weird is this? It wasn't like off, next to a trash can or anything. It was sitting right square in the middle, like they were placed there together. So I kept walking about another half a block, and I was just like, dumb. Okay, you're listening to this and you're hearing this story about this lady who's on the podcast talking about the shoes, and you're thinking about your foot. And I was like, all right, I have to go back and I have to look at the shoes, So I walked back, and I said to myself the whole time, I'm like, if I pick up these shoes and they look in the least bit worn or anything, I'm putting them right back and I'm walking away. And so I pick up the shoes, and again, I looked them up and down. I looked, everything. And they looked like they had never, ever been put on. I mean, they didn't have a sticker, but they looked like they had never been worn ever. I mean, perfect condition. And I was just like, oh gosh, okay. And they look like my size too. So I was like, all right. So I keep making all these conditions. Okay, I'm going to pick these up and I'm going to carry them with me home. And if they pinch my feet in the least, I'm going to try them on. I'm going to take them over to Goodwill or something. And so I get home, I walk in the door, and my husband's like, why do you have a pair of shoes in your hand? I just started to walk with the dog. So I walk in the door, and I was like, it's a long story. And I said, but I'm going to try them on right now. And if they don't fit, I'm donating them.
Right.
They fit me like a glove. They were like the most comfortable pair of shoes I have ever had. I'm not kidding. And so from then on, they became my angel shoes. I just called them my angel shoes. Isn't that funny?
That is the craziest story. And what's weird to me too is that you're just kind of thinking about, my foot hurts. What do I do? And it wasn't even as though you were asking, that's why it's so interesting. And so I think, what have you made of that since? Or do you think about what was that, like something that was always meant to happen? Was it somehow you were asking without knowing you were asking? Were you just awake and aware in a way that maybe we're most of the time not, or we're usually not, or we're sometimes not?
Well,
what do you think it was?
I think that it was right around the time when I was really starting to develop, and starting to pay attention to my spiritual development. But this was kind of like that, they give you these nudges, they give you these little nudges all along. And then they're like, all right, we're going to throw this one in her face to really make her believe. And ever since that moment, I was like, there are no coincidences, period. They don't exist. And so now, I just think it was sort of like my guides, my angels letting me know that all these little things that happen in our lives, there's no mistaking that they're involved. That's all it was for me. It's so silly. It's a pair of shoes. And could it have been a coincidence? Yes, but I don't think so. I just really don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. And I think it's also one of those things too, where I think sometimes it's because we're human and we're in a physical world, those physical things can be so undeniable. When it's physical, it's something you can hold and feel and touch and
tangible. Yeah. So that's my story. I
love that
because and now they have, I wore them so much, they have a little hole in the front and
they're holy shoes now. They're holy angel
Maybe
shoes.
I should ask for another pair. But see, that's what happened. After that, I kept saying, okay, I want to see this, I want to see that. And I must have found, I have very sensitive eyes to the sun, and I must have found over the next 2 months, I found like 4 different pairs of sunglasses just sitting on a post as I'm walking along. And, it was just the craziest thing. So anyway, they were just giving me things for a while.
That is so funny. And symbolic as well. The things that, because shoes, you literally are starting your spiritual journey. And this, it's, I don't know. I love it. I think that's so neat. Well, thank you, Kelly, so much for jumping on and sharing. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. All right.
Bye. Okay. And Gina. Hi, Gina.
Hi, Kim. Hi, everybody.
How are you? And thanks for coming on and sharing your time with us on this Sunday. And what is the spiritually transformative experience you would like to share?
So I'll be concise, but the first thing that impacted me as a little girl, I was about 7. My mother took us to a carnival, and the carousel at the carnival was from the 1800s. And I asked for a ticket to go on again. And my mother said, oh, we're out of tickets. And a woman was standing on the carnival staring at me, and she was dressed in what I later realized was a boating costume from the 1800s. And she just stared at me with very dark eyes. She had very dark hair. I can still see her. And the man taking the tickets just kept walking by her. And I said, well, she doesn't have a ticket, but she gets to go on. And I stood there and stared at her for a long time, and no one else saw her except me. And then as a child, I also had spirits in my room that I couldn't see, but I could feel. So I often spent a lot of time praying. As I grew up as a teenager, I started studying numerology, tarot, taking psychic development classes, joining an infinite way meditation group. I mean, from very early on, I had an out-of-body experience. I had 2 instances where a guardian angel saved me from, one was a lightning strike and one was a car accident, by telling me in a very forceful voice to move. Like in the car, it was like, get over right now. Like it wasn't a calm angelic voice. It was a
Right.
very, do this now. So that kept going as I grew, but it was always kind of random experiences. Like I could feel, someone passed away and then they would show up in my room and I found out later that they died that time. But I was never in control of it. It was just kind of all over the place.
Right.
The books that impacted me the most were Gary Zukav's Seed of the Soul.
Oh, yes.
And by far the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu.
Yeah.
And by far the greatest impact on me spiritually has been Eckhart Tolle. To me, he's an ascended master. I listen to him every day.
Yeah. I do too, Gina. I do.
He has, anyway. So recently, and you know this because you were so kind to me many times, but I've had 5 significant losses in a 365-day period. The first was extremely significant. And more recently, my father passed on January 3rd. Your orb class,
yeah.
Your orb class that I took online just has been so impactful to me. The fact that I can pray, and I try to dance, but that's not my forte. I try to lift my vibration and capture these orbs. I've had so many different experiences over my life. Just hearing voices. I've only objectively had clairvoyance a few times. I'm trying to develop that again. I think it scared me as a child, so I shut it down.
Right.
Most of it's been very subjective. Yeah, the clairvoyance and clairaudience has really been more subjective. But I'm trying to develop it again and allow it to come forth. And the orbs, seeing my loved ones in orbs has been so healing for me. And I'm so grateful to you and this community. And that's really why I wanted to come on. And the last thing I want to say is that I kept saying to my guides recently, like, I'm a spiritual seeker. Why can't I progress faster? Why can't I develop faster? I'm a spiritual seeker all my life from the time I was a little child. And they must be like frustrated. I don't know. I heard, instead of being a spiritual seeker, which is always out there ahead of you, why don't you just be, allow yourself to be the light rather than constantly seeking for something out there. Like, recognize who you are in this moment and be that. So that's what I'm working on. But I just wanted to say thank you. And thank you to this community, because so many kind people here, so many supportive comments, and I'm just grateful.
Well, and Gina, and thank you for coming on and sharing. And I think that, sometimes, because I was thinking about loss and people, it was actually over Christmas, because I was thinking I have to, and it's through Eckhart Tolle, I have to really, really focus in on who is here now and who's still here, and what do I have to be grateful for right now? Because so often I think about the past and 3 or 4 Christmases ago when this person was still here and this person was still here, but I didn't appreciate that at the time. And so it's like, and I go back to like being a teenager when all of my relatives were still here. My mom and dad were still here, and some of my sisters were still living at home, and I didn't appreciate that at the time. So I think that, like you said, Eckhart Tolle, that is so transformative to be able to be here and now and see things in a way that you can appreciate who and what is here now. And I think, but I wanted to say about when you lose people and more people go to the other side, it makes you less and less afraid to go to the other side, because you think, everybody's there. They're all my, my family's there. Everybody's there. And so I think sometimes when we have, I'm getting chills right now for some reason. I don't know why. I feel like sometimes when that this is that the loss in itself is so many lessons in so many ways. But for me, that is one way, because I like you there. I mean, we've lost a lot of people. Our family has lost a lot of people. And I just think, but it's telling me, it's making my fear so much less, about ever being on the other side. I don't really have that fear anyway. But the more and more people that are over there, I think, what is over there? And I'm fine here, but I'll be fine there too, because everybody's over there.
Yeah, that gives me hope. And also a comment you made once about, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but talking about your dad, in that you have a good relationship with your father. Not that you didn't before, but you have a strong relationship with him.
Yeah.
And I can have a relationship with my loved ones across the veil. Like that just, just lifted me.
You absolutely can. And it's different, or it's different because it's not in a physical form, but in some ways it can be so much more intimate, because there isn't that barrier of the physical form. And you fully feel like you can, know them completely, and there's nothing hidden. There's no, that I'm not going to tell them how I feel, or I'm going to hold back my feelings. There's none of that. And so it can be very, very intimate, and a very, in a way, stronger and deeper than when they were here. And that my dad is an example of that.
Yeah, that gave me so much hope. And, listening to Eckhart for years, I never really understood fully how suffering burns up. He calls it up. It talks about how it burns up your ego, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it really forces you into the present moment. When you are in deep grief or loss, or you are in pain, you are so centered and focused in the present moment. And when you can focus in the present moment, it allows the grace of God, and it opens a channel for healing to come through. And I'm trying really hard to hold presence, even when things are difficult or negative, and to allow that grace and that healing to flow. And if you can do it, it's like miraculous to see what happens. It really is. So I just wanted to express my gratitude. The orb mediumship that we did together was just amazing. And I wanted to thank you, and I wanted to thank all the wonderful people in this community, because they are so inspiring, and I'm very grateful. I really got through the last year a good deal because of you, the community, and Eckhart Tolle, beside my other family members.
I'm the same, Gina. Thank you so much, Gina, for sharing and for opening up. You're, talking about these very deeply personal things. But like I said, sometimes when you're in that spot of, I don't feel like I'm progressing, I don't feel like I'm moving, hearing other people's accounts and other people's story can still add on to your growth and your development. And I think talking about Eckhart Tolle and Gary Zukav and people like that, that's exactly the kind of thing, you open yourself up to learn something new, and all of a sudden it opens you up that much more. So yeah,
any moment of awareness, any 5-second prayer, any take a deep breath, and just gain your presence again. It not only expands us here, it expands us spiritually. And because of unity consciousness, we all rise. It's lifting us all. And what a gift and a blessing that is. Isn't that why we're here?
That's exactly why we're exactly. I love that. Thank you, Gina, for bringing me in.
Thank you, everybody.
I so appreciate it. You have a great Sunday.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. And Marcy, thanks.
Hello.
How are you? Thanks for coming on and sharing.
My pleasure.
I can't wait to hear what is your spiritually transformative experience.
The funny thing is, there is no definite moment for me. Like Gina, I had my first experience. I think I was maybe 2 when I saw my first ghost. And I remember it clearly because I was with my sister when it happened. And this
Wow.
little girl, white dress with a big blue ribbon, dropped waist, brought us downstairs and showed us a coffin with a man inside the coffin. And I believe the house that we lived in at the time used to be a mortuary. But my sister and I both remember this happening. We both remember this shared experience. But there are
How
so
old
many
was
different
she, Marcy?
experiences. I'm sorry?
How old was she?
She was 3 or 4. If
Okay.
I was 2, she was closer to 4.
Okay.
But we both remember this experience so vividly. It's crazy. But there have been so many experiences that I had as a child. I thought everybody had those experiences. And when I was 15, a friend of mine was abducted, and I used to pray to be psychic so that I could help find him.
Oh,
And I didn't realize that I already had the connection because I thought everybody did it. I was waiting for like a fairy godmother to come down and boop me on the head and say, "You're psychic," or something more relevant, because
right.
everything that had happened to me up to that point seemed so normal.
Right.
It just seems like it was part of everything. And I think it's important that people understand, because we all go on these different channels and we hear these stories, and people have these elaborate near-death experiences or these big huge things, and it's very, very subtle. The communication can be
Yeah.
so very subtle.
Yes.
And with me, talking about when you were talking earlier about how you go through like a void, you feel disconnected, and then all of a sudden it's like you level up.
Yes.
Those experiences for me are very, very physical.
Mm.
The universe communicates with me on a very, very physical level. And it's funny because I took your first class, and you had us, we would ask certain questions of ourselves. And if we answered a certain way, we were in this category or this category, more clairvoyant, clairaudient, whatever.
Right.
And I came into the part where it was more of an earthly type of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I am about to level up, the universe sends me a deck of cards every single
Oh,
time.
wow. Really?
The first time, my best friend gave them to me, and it was under special circumstances. The second time I leveled up, my sister had just all of a sudden decided she wanted to take me out for a spa day, and we went to the salt caves and did a meditation, and then she took me to this crystal store, and they had used cards there, and I put my hand on this one deck that I was drawn to, and right then my girlfriend who gave me my first deck of cards called me. And we hadn't spoken in like a month at that point because we had both been so busy. And here she is calling me when I put my hand on this new deck of cards. And I felt it. I felt it. I felt like this tingling, this joy. And then this last time was very recently. It was only about a month or so ago. I had a reading with one of the women. You had 3 women that were offering for a donation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I did that. And I had a reading with those women, and they were great, by the way. But one of them said, "You're supposed to be working with the angels, or you work with the angels."
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, "Oh, cool," because I'm all about Michael. I'm all about the angels. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
I decided I was going to buy a deck, an angel tarot deck. So I went online, I went on Etsy, I found an angel tarot deck, and I bought it. When I got the package, there were 2 decks of cards in there. And as soon as I picked up that second deck, and I've got goosebumps telling you this, as soon as I picked up that second deck, I felt it. I felt that energy and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is so
my
great."
gosh.
And that is my favorite deck of cards that I have. I use them during private readings. I haven't used them on my channel. Well, I've started using them on my longer videos, but not on my short videos. But
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
That's because nudity in YouTube. This
Yeah.
deck doesn't have any nudity in it. So. But yeah, this new deck has just been incredible for me. It just put a whole different spin. But that's how spirit communicates with me most, is through nature and through the crows and
Yeah.
earthly things that happens. My first husband who passed, had told me that he was going to send me pennies tails up, and I get them all the time. Whenever something's about to shift in my life, I'm finding pennies in the weirdest places, on
Yes.
the roof of my car, on my current husband's leg. He was sitting down in a car, and all of a sudden we looked down and there was a penny on his thigh. And he was like, "Where did that come from?" I was like, "It came
Oh,
from heaven."
pennies from heaven. And I'm so glad that you do bring up the physical things, because it's partly what I've read, because my dad leaves me dimes and leaves my sisters dimes, and he left my mom dimes. And what I noticed is like you said, it's usually the timing is weird. Like it's right when something's going to happen, or when you're worried about something, or
Mhm.
going on. The other thing is the place is usually odd or different or weird. And I think that with physical stuff, it's a twofold process, right? Because it's not just the fact that it's somehow the thing is there, or somehow they got you the thing, or somehow like the shoes, the angel shoes, somehow they got there.
Right.
But it's also you noticing. That's the other part of the puzzle. And I think that there could be lots of people, even people that are going to watch this, that are missing stuff all the time.
Yes.
So be aware. And when you also, it's in the moment, right? Because when you see the thing, or you get the deck of cards, or you see the penny tails up, there is something inside of you in that moment that you see it, that
Yeah.
is, it's that connection, and you feel it. And there's no doubt in that moment. Once you go past that moment, that's where you can start being like, well, maybe I'm just crazy, or maybe I'm just seeing things. You have to go back to that moment when you know you absolutely know it. And there's no doubt in your mind in that moment when you see that penny tails up and you think, there it is again, and with all of your experiences, and it depends on how trusting that you become of your guides and the universe and things like that. But most people will have an experience like that, and then they'll get past it and think, oh, that was probably just a weird coincidence, or that was probably. And when you do that, you move further away. I think of it this way: you move further away from that next experience you could have, because you kind of pull away from it rather than lean into it. So I always say, even if you just think that it could be that radio song came on the radio right at the right time, it said exactly the right thing. Even if you think that's what happened, just say thank you and leave it at that.
Yeah.
Don't go into that doubt mode, because you're pulling yourself away from other experiences you could have. And like you said, notice them. Be awake to the universe. Be awake in the moment, like Gina was just talking about, so that you can. You're there to witness it. You're in that mode to witness it.
I'm like Kelly. I do not believe in coincidence at all. To me, I've always been one who really, really loved like the Disney movies, and I always believed in magic, and I always believed in everything working out, and that love would save everybody. I live that life. I live 6-year-old me watching Disney. So if I'm outside, anything that happens is magical. Actually, even inside, anything that happens to me appears magical to me. The shapes in the clouds, I can see different figures, and it'll remind me of something, or bring me somewhere mentally, that it just kind of takes over into something more. I don't know how to describe that. I'm sure that was not clear what I meant, but it's really hard to describe. But everything is magic to me. Everything. Everything's a sign. I am constantly, oh, see, did you hear that noise? That's bewitched, right? That's a sign that whenever I
That is
get
a
that during a
sign.
reading,
Exactly. Exactly.
whenever I get it during a reading, it's saying, pay attention. This is true. And that was them saying, this is one more sign that I get all the time. But it is such a joyous, fun world to live in. And you
Yes.
just have to know that we are all connected. And I want people to know that you don't have to have this grandiose experience. It doesn't have to be anything huge. It's very, very, very subtle. And
Yes.
they don't realize the strength of the connection they already have.
Yeah.
So
It's
so
so
thank you for this opportunity to allow me to get that
Marcy,
out
that
there.
is so fun. And I think that and that validation right there, right? Yep, this is a magical world. And I think that's such a good, it's such a it's such a great way to approach the world, because the world and it depends on your perspective, right? Because the world can
Mhm.
seem heavy and down and hard, and now this is happening and that's happening and this is happening overseas, and it can all feel so heavy. And I think that shift in perception of, like you said, no, magic and lightness and fun and
Yeah.
joy and whatever you want to say, angels, God is all around us. We just have to open our eyes and be in that mode of seeing it and looking for it and waiting for it and knowing it's there. What a fun way to live. And I think that it balances out the heaviness in the world. It balances out. You have to have that lightness. If you just take on the heaviness and you be heavy now too, how does that
Mhm.
help anything? How does that help anything? It's like you're right. Having that light attitude and that looking for the magic and believing in the magic, I think that's what lifts not only you up and your family and the people around you, but it lifts everything up, right?
That's really what my channel is starting to focus on, is how important the love is. And that love is everything. It changes everything. And I think now, this year more than any other year, we really need to build that love up. And so I really kind of have a love focused channel as far as trying to lift everybody as a community and helping everybody to get the connection. It is so important. And all I can feel in the energy is the possibilities right now. And I always tell people to get excited about the possibilities.
Yeah.
Even the word excited, right? What does that feel like to you? It feels like the possibilities of magic. It's something that you know is going to come. Be excited about that. You know this is coming to you. Bring it. Just bring it in. That excitement helps to pull it all in, you know? So,
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And that's how manifesting works, right?
right.
It's putting that feeling and putting yourself in that vibration, whatever that
Right.
vibration is, or whether it's, like you said, excitement or magic or fun or joy. If you put yourself there, that's what you're going to get more of. It's going to start coming towards you.
It really does. But going back to what you were talking about, perception,
Yeah.
um, Suzanne Geisman, I get her, like, her little inspirational things pop up on my phone every day.
Yeah.
She said something, or she wrote something that was incredibly powerful. She says, if something that you perceive as bad happens, just say to yourself, now this is interesting, or isn't this interesting? It's one of those types of phrases. And then it just takes your mind out of that spot of this is something bad. And I tell people that all the time. If something out of the ordinary that seems bad happens, be excited about that. That means you're being moved in a direction. Be excited about where that direction's taking you. Don't look at this isn't a bad experience. It's only a bad experience. There's only suffering if we allow ourselves to suffer by focusing on that suffering.
Right.
If you don't focus on the suffering and don't look at it as suffering, you're not suffering. You're experiencing. It's the difference between living a happy, peaceful, joyous life or falling into that fear mode.
Right. I think oh gosh, that's such a great point, Marcy, because I think that, within our free will that we all have,
Mm-hmm.
it's also that decision to decide how we move into an experience, whether we move into it and just see the darkness and the bad and the yuck, or if we can see it another way. And I don't know if I'm enlightened enough yet to say, hey, I'm excited about this bad experience, but I can, I think, do the, isn't this interesting? Because it opens up the possibility that this is something that I can't see yet. This is something that is going to give me something or teach me something that I can't quite see yet, but I know it's there because it's always there. It's always there. I just can't see it yet. Right now, it just looks like a bad thing. But isn't this interesting? Because who knows where this is going to lead, or it will be so interesting to see where it does, where it leads me and what I learn.
Exactly. And it takes you, especially if you start to think about the possibilities of it, if you get excited about the possibilities of it, it really takes your mind in a whole different direction.
Yeah.
You come out of that fear mode. Because I mean, I don't know, for instance, you get an unexpected bill in the mail that's huge and you immediately freak out. And then all of that energy starts freaking everybody else, right? If you have kids in the house, those kids are going to start freaking out. The dogs are going to freak out. It spreads that way. If you just look at it and go, oh, this is interesting. Wonder how this is going to turn out. And then you just let it go and let the universe take care of it. And then that puts out that trusting, loving, believing energy into the world. And this is what we need. I'm telling you, people must think I'm delusional, but if this is how I get through life, this is how I get through life. I don't know if it's real or not, but it really resonates with me. And I'm getting through this world,
right? It does work, and yet you may not know all the ins and outs of why it's working, but it works. And
it works.
I think part of it, Marcy, is that what you just said, that trust in the universe, or trust in your guides, trust in your angels. That trust is that kind of, we always think that, well, you need to build trust and you need to show me so that I can trust you, but it's backwards.
Yeah.
We need trust, and then it's that reinforcement comes and comes and comes as our trust grows and grows and grows. So I think I think that is a great example of the bill coming in the mail and saying, well, this is interesting. I wonder how the universe is going to take care of this. I don't have money in my, how's this going to happen? But honestly, you're right. You're in a way, you're manifesting and you're calling in the magic to happen at that moment, because it's like, oh, yeah, I don't have money, but this came, and so something must be going to happen. This will be interesting to see what it is.
And it's so much fun to live like that. Because it's always a game. It's like, what do you have for me today? I wake up and I'm like that. I'm fortunate enough to be in a position where I don't really have to plan my days. I have to plan around things, but if I don't have anything scheduled, I'm pretty much free.
Right.
And when something takes me off my path, I'm like, oh yeah. I'm just like, what is this doing? Where is this going? Or I'll wake up if I don't have anything scheduled that morning, and I'll be like, what do you got for me today, guys? Let's see how this is going to go, And it just starts off the day with fun. It's just be fun. You want a joyous world, be joyous. And that's it. It's so easy.
I agree. We definitely overthink it.
Absolutely.
We're very, very good at that. Oh, thank you so much, Marcy, for sharing, and I appreciate you coming on and giving us this lift in just a different perspective. I think it's so good to have, And Spirit Made Me Do It is your channel, and we had Kelly on from Mystic Next Door. So check these lovely women out and learn from their wisdom. Thank you, Marcy.
Thank you, Kim, for all that you do. You are such a beautiful light, and I tell everybody about you. I really do. I think you are incredible, and I am so honored just to whenever I can have a conversation with you. So thank you so much for just being you.
I appreciate it. And thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate that. You're so sweet.
My pleasure.
All right. You take care. Have a good Sunday.
You too. Take care, everybody.
Oh, sorry. I keep cutting people off. I'm sorry, Marcy. I didn't mean to cut you off so quickly. I wanted to kind of just go into the chat. I know you guys have been talking amongst yourselves. And if you're watching this and catching it now, I really, go back and read through the chat. We're going to have the chat so that you can go back and look at it. So read the stories that people are sharing, and I hope that everybody has a great Sunday. And thank you guys. I know Sparky was sharing away, and people were reacting to her stories. And Christine VR was sharing her story. And I wish we had time to go into everybody's. But I do want to read this one. After a marital separation, let's go this. Marital separation, all kinds of stress at work at a very low point. I prayed for some sign it was going to be okay. The next morning, going out the door to work. Oops. As I went through the heavy wooden door and the screen door, which was shut, a large white feather literally fell in front of my face from above. I knew an angel had heard my prayer. Oh, and again, right, we're just talking with Marcy about those physical signs that we can get that give us that little lift, and also that acknowledgement that they know we're in this physical world that can be so heavy at times. And so, and again, once you say those prayers, be alert. I can't say that enough. Once you say a prayer, or you ask for an answer, or you're looking for something, ask for those things. Give me a sign. Tell me what I should do. What should I? And then be alert. Be alert to the thing that pops on your computer, or the song that comes on, or the feather that's in your screen door, or whatever it is. But be alert once you have asked, because they're not going to ignore you. I can't say that enough. And take, the advice of Marcy as well, and believe in the magic of this universe, and that we all have a responsibility here to keep our energy, our lightness of being, our vibration up, and to take that as a personal a challenge, and it will help the world. It will help the world. We can do it. It may be one person at a time, but we can do it. So thank you, everybody. And thank you for all of those people who shared, Linda and Kelly and Gina and Marcy. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate everyone being here. Thank you so much. And we will see you next Sunday. Thank you. Bye.